Hi, Michael, you're muted.
I just love the silent movies, you know. Anyway, thank you. That's so helpful. Otherwise, I could go on non-recording and on mute and be all the happier for it. But here we are at the resumption of the Ask program on Glamour, but I'm not really sure we can call it a resumption because every night we've been pretty well doing the entire Glamour meditation because of the situation within the United States. But this particular program will also include some of the reading that we find in the book. I think we're about maybe halfway through the book or so. Um, I'm always wanting to begin these programs with the invocation to the Lords of Liberation. Now, you know, the hierarchy itself is a great power, and we have to remember that Master Moria, Master Jupiter, the Christ, and the uh, Mahachohan, the three great lords, very powerful, are all members of the hierarchy. If we had direct access to them, we would be able to do a great deal. We don't exactly have that kind of access, yet alone to Shambhala, but we can call in the direction of Shambhala and see what kind of work under the impress of purpose can be accomplished. We'll take this up a little bit later when we have our vigil starting at 8 o'clock GMT, because this is the weekend and we're very uncertain about what it will bring. There are mixed signals, but Tui and I will get into that when we do the vigil in another couple of hours. For right now, and for those of you who will not be on the vigil, let us invoke these great beings representing liberty, equality, and fraternity, and excuse me, especially liberty, especially freedom. Of course, we understand that the law of freedom is Syrian in its nature and also is permeating the hierarchy along with the equality and fraternity. So we'll begin in that way, and then our glamour will continue to be in relation to uh, the violence, which is the impulsed method of so many unthinking and warlike people. Let the lords of liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth and coming save. Come forth, O mighty one. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O mighty one. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O mighty one. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O Mighty One, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. And as I say, when we do our vigil work, which must be sustained at least until in its present daily form, at least until the inauguration, and who knows, afterwards what may be necessary, but let us see. We'll get more deeply into it, and if you are there, you'll have a chance to offer your thoughts on that or to speak up on that. For right now, we're going to go back to the former model that we've been using, and that takes us to where we were before. And we basically had an apparent pause for almost a month, but as I said, we've done the glamour meditation more than ever. So it hasn't really been a pause. Now we're dealing with illusion at this point. Is there a segue here? The lower use of the mind and its processes of unfoldment have produced illusion, whilst the unfoldment of the higher mind and later its use as the transmitter of the intuition. These are very important words. It's not the intuition itself, but the transmitter into the world of more easily appreciated understanding. Its use as the transmitter of intuition and of the higher revelation will produce the transfiguration of the three worlds of phenomena in terms of the world of being. That's our segue into further thought about illusion. Now, let's see if we can really be quite understanding about this. It's not easy material, and until we are deeply into that type of understanding, the words may be simply words. So I want to be able to write in here occasionally, so I'll take out a little purple bracket. Illusion is frequently misinterpreted and misapplied mental perception of the truth. Something of the nature of truth may be there in the person who is under the spell of illusion. But the way in which that truth is applied or misapplied, and the way in which it is misinterpreted render the truth into illusion. Now later he's going to give us 7 different methods, 7 different types of illusion, and what to do about them. But it is possible to be presented with truth and simply apply it where it doesn't belong. And all of this due to the rigidity, I would say, of the concrete mind, which has its dogmas and its usual ways of conceiving, which do not change. Yeah, excuse me, have a little trouble with my mouse here. I was explaining to Michael that my cats really like the cords to the mouse. So anyway, illusion is frequently misinterpreted and misapplied mental perception of the truth. It has not to do, and this is the peculiar statement, it has not to do with the mental phase of glamour, because glamour has, a very strong emotional content. And we might just be wrong-headed about something without the accompanying misleading, distorting emotional content. So it has not to do with the mental phase of glamour, though illusion can be carried down into the world of feeling and become glamour. Now that's very interesting, and he tells us somewhere that when we're strongly affected by the fourth ray, that type of transference of illusion into the world of glamour is more frequent. Then we not only misunderstand, but we misunderstand with a certain distorting passion. We misunderstand accompanied by a distorting passion, which misleads and takes us farther from the truth. When this happens, its potency is exceedingly great, because a thought form has become an entity with vital power, the vital power of the astral plane. It's discussed in white magic, and the magnetic power of feeling is added to the cold form of thought, and we are to ponder on this a little here. And let's see if I can its potency, the potency of the vitalized, emotionally vitalized thought form has become a vital entity with a vital power. And this is important because thought can simply be cold and not inclined towards action. It's just how we see things. But in this case, the magnetic power of feeling is added to the cold form of thought. And so I do believe we're speaking about, the vital heat of the astral plane. But at the stage with which we are now dealing, which is that of pure illusion, a revelation has precipitated upon the mental plane. Okay? And owing to failure rightly to apprehend and interpret it or to apply it usefully, so wrong apprehension, wrong interpretation, it has developed into an illusion and enters upon a career of, note these words, this is really important stuff, a career of deception, of crystallization, which I was pointing to, and of misinformation. So we are misled by this form of truth, which we don't have the mind to apprehend properly, or to apply in the direction it should be applied, or to apply it properly. We don't have that. And I guess all of us, until we take the third initiation, are subject to one form of illusion or another, and even then it's possible, maybe to a certain extent, the causal body itself is a great illusion when compared with the absolute or the much clearer truth of intuition. So we're dealing with pure illusion before it has descended and become a warm feeling entity which sweeps us along. In other words, before it has become a glamour. Now, the revelation may be perfectly good, and it may have come from the higher worlds, but we don't have the mental equipment to apprehend, that means to grasp it, or to interpret it correctly, or to apply it usefully. In the 7 types of illusion that he's going to talk about, we apply things in the wrong places and at the wrong time. In other words, often we have problems with the time, space, application of a, I'm going to get rid of this, put that up there, of a descended truth. The truth may be okay, but we do something to it which distorts it, and then at the wrong time and in the wrong place, we seek to apply it. I think we'll be quite interested in what those 7 are. The theme of this technique, the dispelling of illusion, maybe it's the technique of the presence, is therefore concerned primarily with, see, we've been using the technique of light. We, work with our solar plexus and with our heart and with that beam of clear light at the brow. But this is a different technique. This is in a way, a more advanced technique, because there are so many people who are not yet really subject to illusion. But as disciples in training, it is an increasing danger for us, because we tend to be, especially with Master DK as our teacher, more of the mental types. And people who choose their discipleship along a different line maybe do not value the kind of mentality that he is presenting quite so fully. So illusion is a problem. We may hear his words and get some kind of idea, but we're not really interpreting correctly. Now, how to find that out? Well, maybe by the product of what happens. through our wrong apprehension and wrong interpretation. So the theme of this technique, dealing with illusion, which I think is called the technique of the presence, is concerned primarily with, number one, the process of revelation. This process has been, and today is, the main testimony and guarantee of the existence behind the scenes of the phenomenal life of the revealing group or agency whose task is of a triple nature. So there are, let's call them points of revelation behind the scenes. The phenomena provide the scenes. So it's actually a very apt phrase to speak of that which goes on behind the scenes. And the hierarchy is such a revealing group. The beings that are on the triadal levels, including hierarchy, are such a revealing group. And even what goes on in Shambhala, from which we are very distant, it's the bright center lying far ahead. Maybe after the third initiation, we can actually begin to talk about it a little bit. So there are three types of things that are happening by these agencies, these revelatory points or centers behind the scenes. And what are they? So we want the main guarantee and existence of the existence of these revealing sources. That's what we're looking at here, these revealing sources. I'm going to, thing with Zoom is you have to move things around here, So number one, to gauge the unfoldment of the human consciousness and to meet its constant appeal and demand for further light and knowledge. Now, who's doing this? Who is doing this? What revealing group or agency? What revealing group, he capitalizes it, or agency, and certainly at least the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. They are the group behind the scenes who are gauging the unfoldment of human consciousness. They're always assessing, they're always adapting, they are adepts, and they have to meet that demand, often inchoate, voiceless demand and appeal for further light and knowledge, and to do it in the right way. Okay, so first we're dealing with the theme of the technique and the process of revelation. I just want to make sure that we note that in a manner noticeable. So because revelation comes, it points to the fact that behind the scenes there are these revealing groups and agencies. And so much of our spiritual aspiration and practice is to put us in touch individually and as a group with these revealing groups, which are really much bigger than the outer groups that they inspire. So the first thing, to gauge the unfoldment of the human consciousness. Okay, the next thing, to judge what is the next needed revelation. You know, the old saying, there's nothing so potent as an idea whose time has come. So these masters of the wisdom, these Buddhically focused beings, these triadally focused beings, they work with the ideas which must now descend and must be made present to the consciousness of humanity. And it's not all ideas at once. To avoid illusion, the right idea has to be presented at the right time and in the right place, and be reasonably, fully understood. So they judge what comes next. They work with the plan because the divine plan is, that's not the dense physical plane. The divine plan is always about what comes next for manifestation of the good, the true, and the beautiful. The good, the beautiful, and the true. Okay, so going back here. They judge what is next needed, so their timing has to be really good. And what form that revelation should take, as it can vary given the state of humanity and given the group which is targeted amongst humanity, even given the nation. So they have a lot to take into consideration, what form it should take, through what medium it should emerge, maybe, you know, even what type of ashramic effort it should emerge through, and where and when it should appear. So to be a master of the wisdom is to take a lot of this into consideration. What is, I'll just, you know, all of it's important, but I'll just kind of highlight the beginning process. Okay. So the theme, that's what we're doing here, you know, lest we forget. We're talking about the theme of a new technique which involves the dispelling of illusion. And we're saying that this theme involves, first of all, a process of revelation, which is threefold, involving gauging human consciousness and judging where and how the revelation should take place, and then the negative part, but, you know, positive in a way, to ascertain with what obstructions and hindrances and preconceived ideas, i.e. prejudices, the new incoming revelation will have to deal. Now, maybe we can say that we have a revelation concerning reincarnation and constant progress of the human soul, and, you know, who the Christ and the hierarchy really are, revelations of that kind. Now they're going to run into rigid religious thought forms, or maybe in the political field. We're going to constantly hear that socialism is bad, so we must not share. The market will determine the health of our financial transactions in society. All of that is illusory, but those are rigid ideas. In the United States, if you say a word like communism or socialism. Think about Aquarius is a very socialistic kind of sign. It has an awareness of the needs of many people, just as the early Christians did in their communities. It was a kind of socialistic thought which was devoid of some of the abuses that we find today. There are potential abuses of any system, but if we meet that wall of thought forms, the minute you mention the word, there will be no thought at all, just a knee-jerk uh, reflex against thinking through what is really needed. But I do believe that some form of enlightened socialistic thought will emerge during the Aquarian Age, and systems of that kind. If DK says of capitalism, quote unquote, capitalism has emerged and wrecked the world, you can be sure he's looking for some different system to regulate society and to make sure that there is greater fairness and greater opportunity for the many, for the greatest good of the greatest number. Okay, so those are the 3 points in the first concern. Let's call this the first concern. The process of revelation and its triple in nature. And we'll have to study it, of course. The next concern, let's see here. The theme of this technique is therefore concerned with, okay, or, well, maybe the word concern is not the best word, but you get the idea. The next aspect to be treated, to be thought about. The next one, number 2, the fact of the presence, because this is, after all, called the technique of the presence. The presence is the impelling force behind all revelation and is, in reality, God immanent, or what we call our own inner God. Whoop. Our own inner God. See if I can do that without erasing something. Striving. I'm erasing too much, so I won't worry about that. Maybe I can try one more time. There's just too many things. Whoop. Striving ever for recognition and itself impelled thereto by God transcendent. Now, who is our own inner God, and what does this technique of the presence lead to? Well, what is the presence for us? What is the angel of the presence? By the way, there are 7 wonderful stanzas in Esoteric Psychology 2 about the angel of the presence, and they are existing in video commentary on Makara. So in order to work with the technique of the presence, we have to be assured of the fact of the inner being, the monad. Now, in a way, the soul is an inner presence. In a way, the true ego or soul, which is the spiritual triad, is a higher inner presence. And more accurately, the monad itself is the inner God and is the presence. So this technique is helping us realize that revelation is really coming from the monad, through the triad, through the soul, into our personality consciousness. And all of this is impelled by the God of our planet. That is, for us, God transcendent. We don't have to go to the universal God. We can go to Sanat Kumara or the planetary logos, and we will find an adequate representation of God transcendent. So only those can use this technique who are somewhat aware that there is an inner God upon which we finally do depend, we as personalities, we as souls in incarnation, and we are seeking to have more and more impression from that inner presence, that inner God. And now there is one more concern here, if we can call it. Uh, okay, we are about to list concerns or subjects for examination. The process of revelation, the fact of the presence, and the third one, the influence of the angel, who is there are some amazing definitions that we're being given. The influence of the angel, who is the individualized seed of consciousness, through whom, after due growth and response of the personal lower self, will come the revelation of the presence. So first, the revelation of the angel of the presence, and then, through its agency, the revelation of the presence itself. We can say that the angel of the presence, which is maybe as much of the solar angel as can be contained upon the higher mental plane for the individual, without thoroughly destroying the form because of its power, we can say that this angel of the presence introduces us at a certain point, past the third initiation, to the presence. So this other factor here, the influence of the angel, who is the individualized seed of consciousness, through whom, after due growth and response over many millions of years of the personal lower self, uh, will come the revelation of the presence. Through the angel comes the revelation of the presence. Through the angel of the presence comes the revelation of the presence. And that is something we have to take into consideration when we talk about, well, we're not dealing with the angel anymore, we're dealing with something higher. But remember, the presence is introduced to us and we to it through the angel. All true revelation is concerned with the unfolding glory of divinity in some field of expression, thereby testifying to the latent hidden presence. And why is that? Uh, this presence is the root of the glory, is the root of the glory. Okay. Now, there's a little more here. Um, So these are, part of the three concerns. Now, it looks like we have yet another. Let's see what we have here. We have the idea that the theme is concerned with, in other words, subjects, aspects for examination, subjects or factors for examination. And well, there are, there's a bit more here, and we have to see whether we have time for this. The reaction, so this is concern number 4, the reaction of the intuitives throughout the world to that revelation and the form in which they present it to the world thinkers. Now, right there is where the problem comes. A big problem can come here in the field of the thinkers, say, in the sphere of thinkers, and maybe in the manner in which the revelation is presented. Okay. These latter, the thinkers, I guess, world thinkers, having usually the abstract mind, these latter are ever the first to appreciate and appropriate the new truth. The intuitives present the next phase of truth in a relatively pure form, even though at the time of presentation it may be symbolically veiled. So the intuitives have a purer appreciation of the true idea than will the thinkers to whom they present the idea. Okay, so that's concern 4, and I'm just going to kind of mark these so we don't get lost. Concern 3 and concern 2. There seems to be one more. And what are we doing? We're looking here at the theme of the technique of the presence. So the theme of the technique of the presence. That's what we're looking at. Revelation and 3 aspects of that: the fact of the presence, the influence of the angel. The angel and the presence are different. Our inner consciousness is a combination of that which the presence provides and that which the substanding angel provides. They mix, and then this is how our inner consciousness is elevated, because there is a mixture of that which the angel can give and that which the presence can give in its early and later influence. And how do the intuitives react? And how do they present what they have revealed to them? And how do the thinkers take it? And what do the thinkers do with it that may be throwing it into the realm of illusion? And finally, concern number 5, I think it's final. The response of the thinking world to the presented truth. And that's, of course, not a totally adequate response, obviously. It is at this point, yes, and DK is really telling us, right? It is at this point that illusion appears and misinterpretation and misrepresentation take place. So how do we, who are thinkers, I don't know how many of us are true intuitives, somehow focused on the Buddhic plane, but let's just say that how do we respond to presented truths? How do we interpret, let us say, what the Tibetan, a great intuitive, tells us? For instance, we hear words, and based upon our old associations, we decide it means this or it means that. Is it true what it really means, truly what it really means? Or do we, I'm trying to think of something, no man cometh to the Father except through me. Okay. A great higher truth, which is taken by the average dogmatic mind, meaning you've got to believe emotionally in Jesus in order to reach God. That's how that great idea is presented, or at least is interpreted by millions. No man cometh to the Father except through me. What it really means is that we cannot reach the will aspect of the Father unless we prepare that reaching through the principle of love. Or at least if we invert the Shambhala force and avoid love altogether, we have, in a sense, reached the will aspect, but it's certainly not what the Father really is. So, those who have a little bit of the abstract mind and have built the Antakarana to a certain point can see the occult truth behind that glorious statement without necessarily believing that Jesus is God. You see what I mean? Dogmatic thinkers who have been the subject or the victims of forgeries, even forgeries, during the various centuries, as HPB points out, have a rigid mind and interpret the great idea in a rigid, dogmatic, limited way. And there are many such powerful ideas coming forth from the higher realms, which are then kind of trapped by that concrete thinking made into dogma, a kind of dogma which does not contain it at all. Now, the question is, will they get all worked up about it? If it descends into the realm of the emotions, they will get all worked up about it and they'll start killing each other, as has been the sad case of the battle between the Catholics and the Protestants, and the different approaches to divinity. You're wrong, I'm right, therefore I kill you. This is all from Mars and from the lower astral plane, the lower part of the solar plexus. These untrue interpretations of revealed truth, when they have lasted long enough and have acquired momentum, add to the illusion, the general illusion, and become part of it, and thus feed and are fed by the world illusion. Now we're talking, about illusion in a very specific sense. We're not looking at the whole universe and saying, well, it's all Maya. That's a different form of thought. We're talking about simply wrong-headedness based upon thoughts which have captured the mind and which do not relent, and through which all the great revelations have to pass and are therefore definitely misinterpreted, definitely misrepresented. So we have a big fight with illusion. I don't know if I told you my battle often. I don't know. Had a lot of 6th ray in my lives, and therefore I've been pulled into conversation almost instinctively with people who have this kind of dogmatic religious attitude, and probably good karma for me. So anyway, I have tried to present the ageless wisdom, just the way the group in Israel has tried to present the ageless wisdom to uh, people in the Jewish group and in the Islamic group who are captured by dogma. You can't do it. You're up against a concrete. You're up against a stone wall, literally, a wall of stone of concrete thought forms which resist any kind of loosening. You know. And then we have the phenomenon of the Wailing Wall, the wall of the early temple, where people come and express their grief for the fall of the temple and so forth. But of course, all of that has to be loosened, dissolved, pulverized, something. It has to be no longer so concrete. And then there are possibilities. So this is the built-up illusory form of thought developed down the ages, which controls so much of the mass belief. Now, we're witnessing this right now in the United States. Um, just imagine people who can seriously believe that the entire Democratic Party is filled with Satan-worshiping pedophiles. They believe it. It's from this whatever Q source, QAnon. Satan-worshiping pedophiles. No wonder they want to kill everybody. So it's not as the head of the FBI said. The instigator of so much of this nonsense is not tethered to truth, and for many people, truth no longer matters. It's whatever kinds of thoughts have conditioned your mind, and everything else has to meet that particular standard because it's been repeated and repeated and repeated for centuries, so often even because of, as I said, as HPB said, forgeries, a deliberate twisting of the words. As DK said, the great Lord, the Christ, would not recognize what his simple church with his simple principles has become in all of the mummery and kind of pomp and circumstance. He wouldn't recognize it. When the revelation reaches this stage, and remember, it starts out as a good revelation, the mass of men become involved. They recognize the illusion as the truth. We're witnessing it right now. They regard this illusion as reality, the big lie, keep telling it, and then it is believed. They fail to grasp the significance of the veiled, symbolically presented revelation, but confuse it with the illusory presentation, and thus the intuitively perceived revelation becomes a distorted and twisted doctrine. Just imagine the Baptists and those who are against the baptism. Well, you can't be saved unless you are fully immersed under water. It's not enough to just have the holy water poured on you. You have to be completely dunked, or it's not possible to truly be baptized. And it's come such an externality, if you will. And what are there? Over 400 different Christian sects, and they each have their peculiarity without which you cannot do this. And it's all based on the tyranny of thought forms which will not give way. Well, okay. Let's see if I can do anything here that the mass become involved. They recognize the illusion as the truth and nothing else. They regard the illusion as reality, and they hold dear to it. They fail to grasp the symbol. As a matter of fact, not having built much toward the soul or antikarana, they don't understand how to work symbolically. They are the literalists, the inerrancy of God, the inerrancy of the Bible group. Alice Bailey told us about that. She said once she got into issues of translation and she realized that any literal word for word interpretation of the Bible in a particular language is not possible. And yet the concretion prevents the reception of the higher thought. I'm just going to finish this. Theological interpretations and dogmas fall into this category, and there ensues a reenactment of the ancient drama of the blind leading the blind, to which the Christ referred as he faced the theologians, and what did he say? And they both fall into the ditch. So who are the true knowers? And who are those who just believe something and force their belief on you? And it's going to be an illusory belief anyway, and certainly an illusory expression. And the self-righteousness of it is hard to fathom. The above statements are true of all revelation as it comes forth from the emanating center of light, whether they concern the so-called religious truth or scientific discoveries or the great standard of spiritual values whereby humanity, advanced humanity of both hemispheres, seeks to live, and which, from time to time, move on a step in significance and in importance. Well, progress is very slow, the Tibetan tells us, painfully slow over the many millennia, over many millions of years, painfully slow. So it's not enough to simply be impressed by revelation. What do we do with it? How do we understand it? How do we interpret it? How do we apply it? When do we apply it? All of these things come into focus. All right, well, that's quite a bit of reading, but on the other hand, It is a unit of thought, and therefore we can understand something of this technique of the presence, which we're going to be getting involved with as we proceed with the, as we proceed with the book and with our glamour meditation, using still right now the technique of light, because we're not really ready yet for the technique of the presence. So this is the end of program. I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, here's someone who knows, program 170.
Yes, Michael.
Is that correct? Okay. And then beginning next time, whenever it is, program 171. And maybe it will be on the 22nd. I have to check what Tuya and Ann have prepared for us. And it would be anyway, probably, I don't know, it'll probably be a morning presentation. And we'll be reading 108. And we'll be beginning on page 177 up to something else here. And then we'll get...
Michael, yes, yeah. I did just look at Tuya's new calendar, and 22 January is what I show.
Oh, great. Gosh, it feels so good to be right occasionally. Okay. So we're really starting a new section here anyway. So now, thank you. We have here, if you wish to turn on your, you can, if you wish, you can turn on your videos, but not your audios yet. And let's see if there's anything here.
You have a hand.
Okay. Okay. Who is that hand? Maybe you help us call on that person.
Yes, it's Marianne. Let me see if she can unmute herself.
Is it Mariana Larson?
Yes. I just asked her to unmute herself, and no response.
Okay.
There. Yeah.
Okay, Marianne? Yep. Yes. Was it Marianne or was it, who was it? Looks like Marianne, doesn't it?
She lowered her hand.
Uh-huh. Does anybody, Marianne, did you have something you wanted to say rather than write? Okay, I'm not sure we're getting communication here.
Michael?
Yeah, that's right. Turn your volume up a little bit, Marianne.
I don't know how to do that.
Well,
I don't know how my hand was raised. It must be a mistake. But it's nice to talk to you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate your.
I have a computer with its own life.
Yes, yes. I really do understand that.
You do that.
I appreciate your quite frequent attendance at all of these things. So, yeah. Yes, there is. Well, in the great battle between the person of the presence and the dweller, in the computer, there's a big battle oftentimes. Yeah, so
it is really. It's enough with the dweller inside myself.
Mm. Yeah. Have you noticed it?
Yeah. Oh, goodness me. I noticed it.
Mm. Yes.
Well,
yes.
Nice
well, eventually that dweller becomes soul infused, and then it becomes a very useful instrument rather than an opponent, Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we.
I'm on my way.
Yep. Yeah. That's.
Slowly.
I hope that it can be said of all of us that it is the case.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you then. Now let's see, is there anything written here? BL or Michael? BL, what, is there anything written?
The
Or,
only chat message I know about is the one I put in there where I gave everyone the link on Makara to your Angel of the Presence webinars.
oh, okay, okay,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Olivia has
yes,
said, in invoking the energy of Shambhala in GI2 to help in the crisis in the US and the world, a suggestion is to then focus on and repeat mentally the last two lines of it throughout the day. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end.
yeah, I think that could be quite potent. I do think so. You know, that's such a wonderful invocation. I think that one is really potent, and I pointed out the other night that this question of standing with masked intent. Now, that's one that's particularly meaningful to me. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with masked intent. I keep on visualizing the time. Of course, it's going to take time. When people will stand up for the light, and they will do so in a very Vulcanian spiritual will way. Now, basically, in terms of timing, our job first is to clear the ethers. DK is pretty clear about that, and to drive the evil back onto the astral plane. And then, although people like ourselves work with the astral plane, the great moment of humanity standing with massed intent relative to the glamour of the astral plane has yet to come. But, you know, we give it a start. We do what we can. After all, these are seed groups, aren't they? So, you know, the seed group project is to last 275 years. At least that's what we've been told. And I believe that its beginnings occurred in 1925. So basically, we're at the year 2200 is when the seed group project will have reached fruition. And that's still, you know, some 180 years into the future. And probably some of us, in relation to Master DK, if we yearn to do that kind of thing, will be involved in helping with the seed group project in whatever area we can focus most effectively. With groups of this nature, I would say the observers of reality, maybe some of the telepathic communicators, observers of reality, healers, educators. I'm kind of leaving out the politicians. We have to be very well informed, but probably not so many of us are running for office at the moment. The New World religion is another area. As far as the straight scientists go, maybe not so many of us. The psychologists, yes, a number of us theosophically trained can participate in theosophy. To be a true economist is a different thing, group number 9, but to participate in the work of the collection of first-degree initiates whose souls are on the 7th ray and are reorganizing the entire financial setup, that we can participate in. But even if we are not specifically the economists. And then there is the final group, which will be made of 27, which is interesting because the number is exactly the same as the advanced esoteric school. 24 students and 3 experienced guides. Can we call them teachers? I don't know. 27 is the number. So we probably have a tendency probably, towards certain of the C groups more than towards others. And I dare say in the next 200 years, one way or another, we will find ourselves involved. So construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. It's kind of like the hammer blow, you know, it's a bit like Vulcan coming in there at the end and saying, so mote it be, may this be, it will be, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, other thoughts or?
Yes, she says also yes to what you're saying, and we need to invoke a great defending wall now for a safe inauguration of the U.S. president.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. We don't, you know, well, I'm going to get into that a little bit when I do my newscasting before Tuya leads the meditation, and that'll be coming up, you know, in less than an hour. But I'll just say for the people who may not be there that the presence, the military presence or National Guard presence is so strong. You know, of course, infiltration is always a danger, you know, the way it was for Indira Gandhi. She was shot by one of her own bodyguards, as you may remember. But infiltration is a great danger. Nevertheless, the leaders of some of these hate groups have said, don't go to Washington. This is not the time. In other words, some of them are backing off, it seems, because of the overpowering presence of protection. But one cannot assume that that means there's no danger. So we can talk about that later when we're specifically dealing with the vigil. But suffice it to say, there's danger from those who are not part of specific hate groups, just random haters who are responding to, well, the word egregious has been in the news lately, one of the most egregious abuses of power that we've ever seen in a president of the United States. They just respond. And who knows, they don't have leaders particularly except for him, and who knows how many will show up, because there are plans which are dreadful. And if there is no bloodshed starting tomorrow, because that's when they'll start to arrive, I believe, maybe even now, then it'll be a bit of a miracle, and we can hope for that. We can hope for that. But more later. Okay, anything else that you want to, because we do have to meditate now, and I'm going to have to go fairly quickly with that. Otherwise, there won't be time to get into the vigil. So we'll meditate. I'm going to use something different here. As long as there's been the creation of something that is, okay, are you seeing the cross? Do you see
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay, good. Because I'm going to, you know, it's a lot, these images are a lot more evocative than simply using the words, so, and they are complete. Okay, again, we'll go ahead. And we'll just think of ourselves gathered together. And I won't go through the naming of all names, but just think of us in our different geographical locations as one group, and we feel our power growing in a few moments of silence. And our task is to weigh in with the dissipatory power against this glamour, self-righteous glamour of violence. People can tell themselves quite a story about why it's necessary to be violent to save their nation, when they in fact are the ones who are threatening it. That's the great irony. So you know the long-armed cross of divinity, and we start at the forehead, to the heart, to the left eye, to the right eye. And we use the words of the formula, the protective formula. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light, I work, and from that point, I never move. We trace the light, forehead, heart, left eye, right eye, trace the light. And so the individual and the group, let us say, are protected in this often dangerous work, more dangerous than we may know because of inner issues. And before the entire group, a great cross is formed. Now we will focus the dual light of matter with the light of mind, bring them together, so that when we think reasonably and with logic on the mental plane, it is supported by vitality, and we think in the direction of the light of the soul. And we bring that light of the soul down to meet the other two lights on the mental plane. And a triple light now becomes as if one light on the mental plane. And the normal chitta is lit from above, supported from below. And now we repeat the statement, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. And from that light, our beam goes forth. We come en rapport with the astral plane and the dark tides of swirling glamour that can there be found. But we have this light projected, a great searchlight. And by this beam we will detect and dissipate this glamour of violence. We'll also later use different lights and colors which are useful in that respect. Before the group, the beam goes forth. And it will transform darkness into light. And we say together in this process, radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And with the sense of the Antakarana somewhat in place, somewhat built, we invoke the spiritual will. Which strengthens our beam. So that it is strong enough to do the work we intend. And we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And so the fortified beam who's ready to work upon the clouds, the veils, the mists, the fogs, which somehow incline towards mindless violence. This glamour of violence, especially when it is based upon deep misunderstanding and blind belief, has been so destructive in the world. We try to realize that because it has torn down so many worthy projects within humanity. And interrupted so much, as DK informs us. So some calming of the situation, some ability to see the truth and to stop the distortions has to enter. And therefore we use these words of power saying together, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of violence. And this means that increasing peace and harmony will come to humanity. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour of violence, mindless violence, bewildered violence. the appearance, the quality, the life, or vitality, all either banished or reduced or dissipated. And so we will take 5 minutes of silence as we see our beam at work, and in this case, the glamour of violence being weakened and dissipated. 5 minutes of silence. We withdraw our beam from the astral plane, believing that some weakening of this tendency to blind violence, so lower Mars in its nature, has been somewhat weakened, and the forces of violence responding to the 666, which is desire on every level of the personality, these forces are reduced. We'll sound the Om 3 times as we withdraw our beam, and the light returns to its sources, realizing that work has been done not only on the astral plane, but also affecting the mental and the etheric physical planes. Altogether, weakening the dweller on the threshold. Thank you, friends, for joining us here, and in just 20 minutes we'll begin our vigil work. You have the Zoom link for that, so it'll be a new program, and I think we'll work quite a bit with the, I think, reordering power of violet, the calming power of the rose, and the synthetic power of indigo. And with the angel kingdom and the great guardians whose presence and aid we invoke. So this will be up on Makara shortly, and thank you for your participation. And if you don't follow us over to the next program, lots of love and many blessings. And let's see here. Yeah, we'll see you shortly. and bye for now.